Here's a quick look into today's episode. So first, before we get into how you're going to change the culture or how you're going to affect the culture, you need to be so crystal clear on you and what's important to you and what you value, the guidance that you give to when it comes to systems. It's hard to create a new system, but it's easier to leverage a system that people already believe in or people that they trust. Before you say, hey, let's go in here and fix the command and staff and the training meeting, I would say, what works best here? This episode is the first of what I'm calling our signature series. This will be episodes dedicated to specific topics that a group of people have asked about, or in an area where I can share my experiences and thoughts. This episode will be focused on helping future battalion commanders prepare for command, specifically once making the mental shift from their current day jobs to starting the pre-command courses. I'll be having a conversation with Nick Tallant, a future battalion commander, while he's at the pre-command course. Nick's a special forces officer, and him and I served together in SOCOM. We'll talk about preparing for command, leadership, and my personal experiences as a squadron and battalion commander. It will also be a closer look into who I am and what I believe about leadership. We'll talk about mindsets, key documents, commander's philosophy, things I value, guidance for all, expectations. We'll talk about systems development, the morning stand-up, building trust, and the 8-month cycle for command. We'll also talk about what I call see everyone and everything, because what we do on a day-to-day consistently resonates with people the most. If you are interested in seeing this in more detail, email me at matthew.p.leclaire@gmail.com, and I'll send you the documents and a description of how to make them your own. In future Signature Series episodes, we'll cover counseling and coaching and daily routines and systems. And now on to the conversation. I was reading a book about culture, and just finished it yesterday. And it's a book called What You Do Is Who You Are. And so it's about like different cultures and how they write things on the wall. They say this is what we're going to be about. We're going to be about integrity, and we're going to have values, and we're going to have these things. But it's what you do that is what defines the culture in your organization. And it gave a lot of really good examples on the different ways cultures fail and the way cultures are successful and the things that they had to do along the way to demonstrate what they said were their values or what they said was their virtues. You know, and he defines the difference between a virtue. A virtue is something you do, whereas a value is something you believe. So if you say, our culture is going to be around integrity, and you're like, okay, that's a value, but what's a virtue? A virtue is telling the truth. Like it's something you do. And then it becomes things that you can define, things that you can say, if you do these things, like that will demonstrate a virtue, which then those multiple virtues, then those are our values. Those are the things that we believe, you know, treating people with dignity and respect. Well, what's an example of treating somebody with dignity and respect? You know? And so I started writing a few of them down last night for the 196th and like how would it apply to this organization. And I was like, I went back to one of my all-time favorite documents and it's funny that I keep going back to it, but it was things that I value. And I got this from this idea from Rick Merritt, who was the Ranger Regiment's Command Sergeant Major. He's a legend in the Ranger community. And when we were in Afghanistan, and he was put in charge of the Joint Task Force in Afghanistan, and there was like all these porta shitters right outside the TOC, right, where like all the JSOC guys were and stuff like that. And all of a sudden the shitters started to have like rank. So it was like 06 and above we didn't have a lot of 06s, but like, you know, 05 and above, and sergeant majors can use this shitter and like this one. And the further you got away from the TOC, like then it was like, okay, that was like General Pop shitters. And he wrote a note to like AF all, which was Afghanistan all. And he was like, hey, I don't play rank when it comes to shitters. Everybody can use the shitters are for everybody. right? And then he started doing these like responses to like when someone would ask him something. So somebody asked him like, "Hey, Sergeant Major, you know, I'm not re-enlisting because there's nothing good about being in the Rangers anymore, you know, blah blah blah." And he's like, "I'll give you something that's good about the Rangers." And he just listed going down a fast rope, getting on the bird, dust in your face, you know, and he just started going down this list of 1,000 things that he loved about being a Ranger. And I took it, and I've been doing it for years, but then I called it a document called Things I Value. And when you said like the first one was your philosophy, right? When I was developing like a philosophy and like a 1-page document, and you're taking in information like not only through your whole career, but from all these different people, and you like highlight, I like this one and I like that one, and this one's too much. And you're like, how do you get it all into one piece of paper? And then you figure out what your buckets are, and you're like, this one falls into this bucket, this one falls into that bucket. And that guidance for everybody. And I kind of bucketed it at the top, and I said like, this is what our purpose, this is why we exist, this is what our organization does. And that was hard. It's hard in 2 or 3 sentences to say this is what we do. You just did it, right? What does SOCOM exist? Why does the higher headquarters battalion for the 4th Infantry Division exist? Our purpose is to support the division. Our purpose is to support soldiers and units to be able to fight and win in combat. You want to get it as simple as so that everything you do at any point when someone says, "Hey sir, I'm getting ready to go mow the grass," you could kind of say to yourself, or they can say to themselves, how does me going out front in the front yard today, mowing the grass, help soldiers and units fight and win in combat? Well, they don't have to mow the grass. They can be at the range instead of mowing the fucking grass because I'm doing that. Like, is there a way that you can, it has to, but when you're figuring out your purpose in life. Mm-hmm. And then you got your buckets, like when you start, I wouldn't suggest like when you're doing an outline for a paper, you say like, these are the 3 major things that I want to talk about. I kind of see this as go the opposite way and just start listing out things like in a row, like hundreds of things, papers, notebooks. Mm-hmm. Every morning when you wake up and you think about what's our purpose, write it down. What are the things that we are being asked to do on a daily basis? And like it could be anything from like we do evaluations for all of the officers and senior NCOs that are on the division staff. Okay, so somewhere like that's day to day. And why do you look at things that happen on a day-to-day basis? It's because that's the things that people, when they wake up in the morning, they do PT and then they go sit behind their desk, or do they go to the motor pool and do they turn wrenches? Like, what is it they do on a daily basis? And if you want a document or something, your vision, your philosophy to resonate with people, I think it needs to be about things that people do every day, not things they do once a month, because it won't resonate with people. They don't do that once. We do PT every day, right? We put our uniform on every day. We come to work every day. We don't work virtually. We see people every day. We communicate with people every day. And so when you start listing out these things that we do daily, it's easier to communicate to people. It resonates with people. It sticks with me because, I get it. Like that, I do that every day. And so one of this one right here is called Guidance for All, stuff that you want everybody to think about. And I'm starting with the end in mind, and these are the things that you value. These are the things that you are. And what you'll see is it's a document with 50 things on it. And some might say like, well, there's too many things on it, but it's like, I value people who love what they do. I value teamwork and team spirit. I value people who are ready. And it keeps going. I believe training done to standard is inherently safe. I value PT every day. I value PT because it builds like combat interest. I believe amateurs do practice until they get it right. I believe professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. They're just unmistakable sentences, short little sentences that when people say, "How am I doing, sir? How do you think I'm doing as an officer?" I always, when I counseled them, I said, these are the things I value. So we just start at the top and we go down the list and we say, how do you, I value people who love what they do. Do you love what you do? Well, sometimes I kind of feel like, I'm not really loving it right now. Why are you not loving it? There's the counseling session. Off it goes. How are you doing in the things? If, when evaluation, senior rater counseling, this is my senior rater philosophy. Okay, but those documents usually kind of go off to the side and die. But like things that you value, like they're unmistakable. They're unmistakable. I'll kind of pause there for a second.
No, that's good. I really like that. I really like the something everyone can take away.
I kind of had these 5 documents going from the beginning, and then every time I would put them onto paper and hit print, and then I just make notes on them. And so those documents that I always had was the commander's philosophy. And then the back page of the commander's philosophy was the things I value. And then I asked the people in the organization, I asked all the company commanders, I asked in every room that this document was printed, signed by me, and a PDF and put into a frame and put up on the wall. I wanted it everywhere. Okay. I put it at the CQ desk. I put it at the staff duty desk. I put it in the company headquarters. I put it everywhere. Every time I counseled somebody, every time I talked to somebody, I used the same piece of paper for 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't change it. After a couple months, I realized there was a word missing. There was something, but I wrote right directly on it, and I opened it up and I said, this piece of paper is a contract with myself. It was me saying, this is my accountability document for myself that says this is who we are. This is who I am. I say we are a culture of people who are ready and do the right thing. What I'm really saying is I am a person that is always ready, and I'm always doing the right thing. And you say, well, what is always ready? I don't know. What are we being asked to do? What are they going to ask us to do this week? Well, right now we got PT on Tuesday. All right. Am I ready to go physically? Am I ready to go run a 5-mile run? Am I ready for if there's a surprise ACFT on Saturday, on Monday? Am I ready physically? Am I ready if the CG said, hey, Nick, I'm coming down to your battalion and I'd love for you to kind of lay out, your training plan for the next couple months. If the answer is I'm not ready, then write it down and we start getting ready. But the answer is, are you ready? And you can have a whole conversation with anybody anytime they say, I don't know, sir. Ready for what? What's your duty? Are you a mechanic? Are you a commo guy? Like, do you have a 10% inventory coming up? Like, what do you have that you need to be getting ready for? Like, are we ready? So this was my commander's philosophy. The second page is the things I value. And I go through those, and I started writing these things down weeks, months in advance, and I started refining them at each day at PCC. Every time somebody said something to me, every time I heard something. The third document is called Guidance for All. This is something that everybody in the organization needs to do. And these are things that if we do these things, we will get after the commander's philosophy. We'll get after it. This is a how-to document. If the first document is this is what we're going to be known for. This is what the organization is going to be known for. When I say the organization, this is what Nick Tallant's going to bring. This is your document. If nobody else reads it, this is how you're going to live your life, is through the command philosophy, right? And if anybody looks at the command philosophy and there's a sentence on there that you don't demonstrate on a daily basis, take it out, because they'll call you on it. But I say that because, but don't assume that anybody's going to read it. Again, it's accountability, a document to yourself on how you're going to live your life and how you're going to lead. The third document is Guidance for All. And these are things that I started off with. Who am I? What am I about? What is important to me? What you can expect from me? What do I expect from you? And then a couple things that are just like, I had to get out there. Like one of them, for example, email etiquette. I can't help it, but there's something about me that says there's a certain way that email works. When you're on the 2 line You respond with, I got it. Thanks, sir. Understood. I'm on it. Better yet, you responded with, I'm on it. Here's the dates at which we're going to do. Here's the solution to what you asked me for. But you never, if you're in the 2 line, you never just go crickets. You also don't send an email to 1,000 people. You send it to about 5 to 10 people because you expect them to come back with a response. You CC people from there. You know about this because you wrote enough gems to fucking choke, anybody on staff, right? But there's an expectation when it comes to an email because we don't just randomly do these emails. And if you apply even a little bit of the things that you did when from where we came from, and you apply that to your business, you're going to notice that you're going to send out a note to 12 people, all your company commanders, and 3 of them are going to respond. And you're going to wonder, did the other 9 even read it? And if they did, what did they not understand? Like, why didn't they come back and say, hey, sir, I read your guidance on the upcoming, Christmas season, but I don't understand this, this, and this. Or they'll wait till they see you face to face and you'll say, hey, man, look, when I send an email, my expectation is response in email, not I send an email and then you call me on the phone. If I want to talk, I'll call you. If I send you a text message, don't send me an email back. Send me a text message back. If I call you, we'll have a conversation. And if I don't, I'm saving it for the training meeting. That's a face-to-face conversation. I don't want to have a conversation over email. Email's just for putting out information, But you got to be clear about those things because you're going to have so much more experience than everybody else in your organization. Like it's not even going to be fun. Like they're going to have no experience with this kind of stuff. None. No one's coached them on this.
So based on everything that you've seen to this point, are there any communication, like what you just laid out? Hey, if I send you an email, send an email back. Those are fantastic. How would you use email differently? You could control some things, but at the end of the day, the brigade was also controlling something. Division was controlling certain things. I mean, were you able to use those tools in the way that you thought they should be used?
I would say it starts with your division. What is the division commander's most used method for communicating? If he communicates through talking to people. He communicates through the meetings that he goes to. And by talking to people, I mean like one-on-ones, 2-on-2, 1-on-2, short little meeting, because there's usually not like a video of it. There's not notes. It's hard, those one-on-ones, those small groups. Then you've got your meetings that somebody's usually taking notes of. They're usually through a VTC. You can chime in. You can listen to what he's saying in his morning stand-up, right? And then you've got email correspondence that your CG's probably got, like he's probably got an XO who's a captain who's writing for him like you were for General Fenton and stuff, but not at that level of expertise. Like this is somebody that's never done this before. So they're not really doing gems, but General Gerard did all his emails himself. And so like you knew if it was coming from him. He had taken the time to get behind his computer and wrote that email. That was the most important thing in my world, was the 3 ways in which Jamie Gerard or Ron Clark before him, that they communicate. If they even like in any way, shape, or form to communicate this way, I'm fascinated by it. You're fascinated by it.
And I like it, you love it.
Oh my God, you love it. and you love it. And Jamie Gerard wanted to communicate to the moms and dads, sisters and brothers back on the mainland what we were doing in Hawaii through social media. I made social media become the most important way to communicate to the CG. And you know what he told me one day? He's like, Matt, I don't even have to read your sit reps because I know what the rattlesnakes are doing, because every day I'm getting an update on social media and Instagram that you're doing jungle school, that you were out here, that you're in the motor pool, that it's Monday morning maintenance. He goes, and I'm taking notes. And he goes, you are clearly communicating to your higher headquarters that you are meeting their intent. But if your CG is not on Instagram and he's not doing social media, don't worry about it. You know, now you can worry about it, brother, from like a
Mm.
standpoint of if that's how you communicate, that what's going to be your method to communicate to the moms and the dads and the sisters and the brothers and the wives and that, and it's Instagram and it's Facebook, because those are the methods that are tried and tested right now. It's the fastest way to get information. When we went down into COVID lockdown, we just sent out updates every day on Facebook page. The garrison sent out things on the Facebook page. We would just forward the garrison's update on when the commissary was going to be open on Facebook. Our followers tripled. Everybody knew where they were going to get the information. It was accurate. It was fast. People could respond. It's just, use the tool. It already exists. It's proven. Use the tool. But if your CG is communicating through email, you need to become an email junkie when he responds. So you set up a couple of rules, right? Anything that comes from this person gets put in 16. I showed you the color shit that I used to do. 16-point font. It's red. It pops up. Jamie Gerard sent me an email. It's the first email I go to, right? Because he sent it, and that was his method for communicating. And then when he was going to be in a meeting, I made sure I was prepared at any moment when he turned and goes, "Hey, Matt, I noticed you were sitting in on this meeting. What do you think?" You better what are you going to say? You know, that warfighter, whatever, he's teaching the division staff how we're going to run this upcoming warfighter. I don't have to be there. I wasn't even invited. I'm sitting in the back. Why? Because I'm the division cavalry. And I'm the one that's going to be the first person that they put in on helicopters to go figure out where the enemy is in North Korea. And he's like, "Matt, what do you think?" And I'm like, I bet he's going to ask me what I think in the future. I'm going to figure out how he's going to run the division staff. And I was like, there's a method. So number one, you work for the division commander. Like if it's on his mind, you are like, how can I make his dreams come true through a realization, through the division staff, through the division like this? You need to be able to, like when closes his eyes, you need to be able to go, I know what he's thinking about right now. Right now, he's frustrated that people don't understand what he's getting after. Right now, he's happy because he knows we are on track for the division warfighter that's coming up. He's happy because the chief of staff has figured out, okay, in order to be ready for the division warfighter, we're going to use these CPXs. We're going to do these. We're going to set up the tents and the TOC at this point. These are the amount of people that are going to be in there. But while we're practicing setting up the tents in the field, what can be happening in the classroom is the people that are going to be actually on the computers can be doing this and this. And there's a whole method to how we're going to get to the warfighter, because all roads lead to the warfighter for a division. Like that is the JRTC. That's the culminating event, and everything you do. So the sub bullet to what I said earlier is that our purpose is to help soldiers and fight and win in combat. Our purpose is to help the division absolutely crush the warfighter. And so how is what you're doing today a step, a brick in this wall to get us to absolutely crushing it at the warfighter? And I think, brother, the 4th Infantry Division wrote the book on how to do a warfighter, and I forget the document because it's over here in one of these books. I'm gonna make a note, and I'm not gonna get off on too much of a tangent. And it's the IV way, and for warfighters, I have it. I know I have it. It's in that book over there. That's another conversation. Okay, don't get sucked in to being, because you're an SF guy, and you become the expert L&O to the SF group on on what they're going to do. No. You are nope. There's dudes for that. You are the HHBN commander, and your job is to make sure that the staff X's and the CPX's and the people have what they need, and the people are on time, and they're in a good mood, and they're not standing in a tent in 3 inches of water. Because you're who they're going to turn to.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, I mean, like talk about that, how you approached kind of changing, and you told me some anecdotes, but how you approached kind of changing the culture for the squadron, the CAV squadron, and just, what, as you look back, like what you thought really went well, and, what you would do again, or what you would change if you did it again.
So first, before we get into how you're going to change the culture or how you're going to affect the culture, you need to be so crystal clear on you and what's important to you and what you value And that's why what you're doing right now at PCC about your philosophy and the things that you value and the guidance that you give to everyone. And then you start thinking about the guidance you're going to give to lieutenants, captains, majors. How are you going to break them down? It was easy for me in the squadron. I broke them down into platoon leaders and platoon sergeants. I broke them into company commanders and first sergeants. And then I broke it into the field grades and the sergeant majors. And so I had 3 guidance I called it expectations for platoon leaders and platoon sergeants. And so again, now we're up to 6 documents, right? Which, because that's 3 more that I just said. And you're like, when do these notes, this doesn't fit into guidance for all. This fits into a guidance for field grade officers and sergeant majors. This fits into captains and first sergeants. Maybe you need to have some kind of document that fits into division staff. How are you as a lieutenant colonel going to give guidance to other majors and lieutenant colonels and maybe even an 06, right? And sergeant majors who work on division staff and say, this is my expectation of you. I have expectations like, and how are you going to craft that? How are you going to tell other lieutenant colonels on division staff that you're the G1 and my expectation is that you do PT with your staff section? Like, how are you going to verbalize that? And are they going to trust you? Are they going to tell you to go fuck yourself? You know, are they going to say, who the fuck do you think you are? I know they're not going to say that one because I know who you are and I know what you're about. You know, Kai Thaxton is doing the same thing. I put you in touch with him, right, at the 82nd. He's a Green Beret. He's a Green Beret, a first grouper, a first of the first guy for his life. And now he's back at Fort Liberty running the HHBN for the 82nd Airborne Division. Because you guys think differently than everybody else. You're the ultimate team player. That's what Drew Morgan always says. You are the ultimate team player with the division staff. So how are you going to kind of craft those things? How do you create a kind of culture? You got to be crystal clear on who you are and what you are going to demonstrate on a daily basis, because the way that you act is the way that the battalion's going to act. So if you are the consummate team player with all the other battalion commanders and the division staff and the brigade commanders, people are going to follow your example and they're going to be ultimate team players. But if you ever say something, even no matter how like quiet it is, and you're like, you know, I was first brigade's kind of a bunch of jerks, and first brigade, you know, they all they care about is themselves. You just said all you care about is yourself, and you're not willing to work well with first brigade. Like, so it's like, those things resonate. But when someone says, you know, hey, you know, first brigade needs help with the following things, they need a couple extra tents, and you're like, when are we getting them those tents, and how are we going to help first brigade? And they're like, I thought you didn't like, you know, I thought you didn't like. Who said that? You've got to squash it from the get-go, you know, from the beginning. Culture, how do you kind of set the culture? You know exactly who you are and what you value, and then you come, because you want these documents to be like as good as you can possibly get them. I don't recommend you walk in on the first week and go, here's my documents. Don't do that. No, you keep these things hidden, right? Because now you know exactly what these guidance and the philosophy and this stuff, and they all say, but you're going to be known as the guy that listens. And you're like, I had one document that I gave them on the day, like 2 weeks before I showed up, a month before I came into command. And it was a document I called, I want to see guidance for see everyone and see everything. I want to meet everybody in the squadron, wherever they work. And I want them to explain what it is they do, what their duties and responsibilities were. And I want to see everything. I want to see the containers. I want to see the vehicles. I want to see the motor pool. I want to see where we run training meetings. I want to see everything, and I want to see everyone. I don't want any PowerPoint slides. I don't want any documents. I don't want anything. I just want to see them on their place, and I want to talk to people. That's what I want to do. And I asked the XO to kind of set that up, and it didn't go exactly the way I wanted. And the reason is because it was hard to communicate that kind of guidance through like a document,
Yeah.
and nobody's ever seen that before. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
something they were so used to doing. Well, these are the standard 12 slides that we do for an in brief, and like
They almost couldn't
this is how
believe
we
that
do.
that's what you really wanted,
They
you know?
they couldn't believe it. And I would say things like this: "Hey, when I said I didn't want any PowerPoint slides, what I really meant was no PowerPoint slides. That's what I really meant. I really meant it." And so now you come in and you're listening, and you realize I had to say the same things 10 times. Like I had to say no PowerPoint slides 10, 20, 30 times before people started realizing the SCO doesn't want a lot of PowerPoint slides. Like he doesn't. He wants to talk face to face, or he wants a one pager. Like he wants a one pager that he can read and fold up and put in his book, not 10 PowerPoint slides that don't do me any good, I don't want PowerPoint slides. I want an SOP. Like, what's the SOP for how we're going to change out batteries in the motor pool? Don't make a PowerPoint slide. That PowerPoint slide doesn't change out batteries, but an SOP does, but a system does that can withstand the test of time that those privates can use. So I'm listening, right? And I'm listening to what people are saying, to what the organization needs. And the example is, I thought, okay, so now I've got all these documents and I've got all this written down, and I've been listening to everybody at the PCCs tell me what it's going to be. And I think I know what the IV brigade needs, right? In my case, I think I know what the rattlesnakes need. And I show up and the division commander says, "Matt, I just need you to do one thing. I just need you to make those people feel like they're part of something special." And so like it resonated with the guys. So, but I didn't realize that that's how much they were going to love that. And so, and then I was listening, I was watching, and I was implementing more of the things that were working and less of the things that didn't work. And so I thought I had all these ideas about what we were going to need. Right. And we go out to PT on I think it was like my first or second day. And so we go outside, and we go out to do PT at 6:30. The flag's about to go up, right? And we're CF formation. And I go, "Hey, Sergeant Major, why are there 3 different colored PT belts out here?" And he goes, "Oh, well, the green ones are for the sergeants, the blue ones are officers, and the orange ones are soldiers." So that's how we define, like, so when you see people doing PT, that's how you know who's who. And this was the division standard. This was the 25th ID standard when I got here. And I go, "Oh, why are there so few blue belts out here? Don't we have, we got like 40 officers in the battalion squadron?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, the officers don't usually do PT with the platoons because they usually do PT with each other because it's not challenging enough." And I go, "Oh, okay." And I go, "How come there's only a few green PT belts out here and there's so many people in uniform?" He goes, "Well, that's because, a lot of details are going to start at about 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Guys got appointments, and so they're in uniform because they're going to, as soon as formation's over, they're going to head to their appointment. And then if there's a detail, the sergeant's got to be in charge of it. So the sergeant isn't doing PT because he's in uniform already. So we got a few sergeants, and then we kind of just gather everybody who's left under the couple of sergeants that are here, and then those guys will go do PT." And I was like, "Okay, noted." What just became the most important thing in my world? PT. And I didn't think that PT was going to be the most important thing I was going to have to fix. And instead it was, all right, PT. And I didn't have to be a jerk about it or anything. I simply demonstrated no days off, PT every day. Every single day, I'm going to do PT here. I'm going to do it where the most amount of our soldiers can see me. I'm going to be wearing my PT belt, and I'm going to be doing PT with the Sergeant Major, with other people. I'm going to walk right through the battalion area every day. Fast forward. And so every little incremental step was like how to get people off profile so they can get out of uniform and be doing PT. How to get people off details. No details can start until 9:30 because that's when we do PT. And you started incrementally, like little steps, not being a jerk about it, just little steps to get. The goal is to get as many people standing in PTs, doing PT, officers with NCOs, doing it together with their units, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward. It was probably only about 3 months later. And Sergeant Major says, "Hey, sir, check it out." He goes, "Every one of those Every one of the troops right now has their first sergeant standing in front of their company in their troop. Every one of those troops has their officers standing behind the platoons with the platoon sergeant up front. Look how many green PT belts there are out here. There's not one person standing in PT formation right now. And it was just like a random Wednesday. And he goes, there's not a single person standing here in uniform. Everybody's in PTs.
Mm.
And he like turned to me and he kind of goes, sir, you did that. You did that because you were out here with me and we were together every day.
Mm.
And just by being the example, you almost didn't even have to say any of these things, but you got what you wanted, the goal, by being the example. And that's how you change a culture, is by being the example that you want to see. And they would, as soon as the flag went down and the guidons, they got done with their salute, they would turn on this music, and it would start blaring, and people would start like motivational speeches going on, and like, corn over here, and like, and then people would step off, and they named it, they called it the snake pit, which was like the company areas where everybody would do PT. The CG used to come down here. They were like, I want to do PT in the snake pit. And then the Gimlets, their PT area was backed up against ours. So we did our formation here. They did their formation here. So guess what that relationship did? It was even stronger because we were listening to the same music. Some days their music was better, and it was just, I want to go.
Was it speakers that kind of like aimed? Because I'm just thinking back to like, I don't even know how you would have done that back at my old infantry battalion. Like,
well, it starts with like one of those little handheld,
okay.
Like imagine the handheld little speakers. This is my golf one, but like speakers that are Bluetooth to your phone. So somebody has a playlist, right?
But so it was literally that, like the little.
Well, Bravo Troop, First Sergeant Cummings, he had one that was about this tall, and it was on wheels with like a little handle that you could pull behind it, and you plugged it in, and it Bluetooth to it. And this speaker was like, it was about 3 feet tall, and it was so loud. You could hear it from a mile away. And so if he was playing like, bring Sally up, bring Sally down, and they were doing like a ab workout to it, next thing you know, you'd see a platoon from the other company down like 50 yards away. They're like, we'll just jump in on it because the music's so loud. It's awesome. Like, let's do that same exercise they're doing. And it was contagious, man. It was absolutely contagious. You got to give people a place where they can gather and be and feel like they're part of something special. They can feel like this is the place to go at this time of day. When I was a Ranger, when I was growing up in the Rangers, we had this place called Bico Island. And it was right out in front of Bravo Company. I was in Charlie Company, but it was just known as it was Bico Island. It was a grassy area. And you knew that before 8:30, who's who in Ranger Battalion would walk by or be at Bico Island at some point. Like you could just stand there and like Joe Votel would walk by, or he'd run by, or the CSM would run by, or Tony Thomas would come by and be at Bico Island and be like, see who's doing sit-ups and see who's doing like this. Because you knew this is a place in the morning where you can find Matt LeClaire. You can find the SCO in the morning at 6:30 when the flag goes up. He will be there to salute the flag. He'll probably hang out in the area from anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to stretch. He'll gather 3 or 4 people that want to run around the airfield, because I ran the airfield every day, or I'd run up Coley. I ran every day, not because I wanted to necessarily be a runner, but because it was a way I could get a group of people and talk to them and ask, hey, you struggling with something? Hey, let's go for a run. Sir, no, I don't know if I can run with you. I can't keep up with you. You go, you do know I run conversation pace 10 minutes a mile, right? Like as slow as molasses. And if I start getting tired, we'll slow down. They're like, oh, it's great running with the commander because he runs slow and we can talk for 45 minutes or an hour. You change the culture by going with what the unit needs the most. So like, what do you think that unit needs the most right now? Your unit, the unit you're going to, what do you think they need the most?
Yeah,
people have told you a few things.
I think they need that, and I think they need some systems. That it's so different. It's not like a kind of a conventional or a unit that's, hey, there's four companies and they all look the same for the most part. It's like everybody's different. So training meets, like battalion training meets, they may not look like the other battalions that are in the division, but they're going to be a training meeting. You're going to do command and staff. Like there's going to be things that are the same.
When it comes to systems, it's hard to create a new system, but it's easier to leverage a system that people already believe in or people that they trust. And so before you say, hey, let's go in here and fix the command and staff and the training meeting, I would say, what works best here?
Right.
What's the best thing you guys got going? Has anybody said what the best thing they got going there is? The thing that is no fail. What are they known for? You know, we often bring up and we often talk about the most negative things, but what are they known for?
Yeah,
and so like, I'm trying to come up with an example for like the division staff, but like if you say the division staff, man, they get warfighter right. It's like they might not do command and staff well, and they might not do training meeting right, but man, do they do warfighter. And you go, okay, what systems do we have for the warfighter? And so they go, okay, well, for the warfighter, we got CPX, we call it CPX1, we call it CPX2. That sets the stage for the JRTC rotation. And then inside the JRTC rotation, the division's going to replicate the higher headquarters, where we're going to practice what we did in CPX1 and CPX2. Now we have an audience, the JRTC ops group, and we have the brigade combat team that's going through it. Okay, so now you have us exercising the higher headquarters. Okay, but that's the thing. What I would say is how do you get your command and staff and how do you get your training meeting and stack it on a warfighter thing? Hey, today, guys, we're going to do a rehearsal for warfighter CPX1. We're going to spend 30 minutes talking through how CPX1 goes. But before we get started, I want to review awards and evals and the next 30, 60, 90. So the first 15 minutes, we're only going to spend 15 minutes, but we're going to talk about a little section of the command staff. So not the whole command staff, but the one part that you want to get right is who's coming, who's going, when's their eval due, and do we have their award submitted? Okay, so that's 3 things out of the whole command and staff. But what you just did was you stacked it on top of something that people loved going to, because they love going to the rehearsal for the CPX, because they like doing CPXs, because they like getting ready, crushing warfighters. So you stacked your biggest weakness onto your greatest strength. If that's PT, which is probably not the case, but if showing up for PT is the place where 96% of the people show up at 6:30 in the morning and go to this location where they feel like they can be separated. All right, well, now at the end of PT at 7:55, you want to spend 10 minutes and just get people to initial off on the 30, 60, 90, or something like that, or bring your training schedules to PT, and you're stacking it on top of something that is already kind of working. That's my thought on systems. And maybe your greatest strength is a person. Maybe you have this master sergeant who works in the one who has the greatest influence on people. So instead of running a meeting with you and the command sergeant major at the table, you empower that S1 NCOIC master sergeant, because people love Jonesy, and they will do, if Jonesy asks them to do something, they're like, I'm fucking do it because Jonesy asked me to. It don't matter. I don't work for him, and I don't, in no way does he, am I going to get, you know what I'm saying? It's Jonesy, man. Everybody loves him. And so now it's like you empower him to say, Jonesy, I'm giving you the freedom to go and meet with all the all the folks on the division and get them to blah, 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 awards, evals, and 30, 60, 90. Because you identified that as the most important, the biggest bang for your buck. You can't change everything. You can't fix everything. But now you're taking the thing that you want to fix and you're taking your greatest strength and putting it against that thing. And Jonesy will love you for it. Jonesy will be like, hey, sir, you finally got me. You're the first person that said you knew what I was good at. And you know that what I'm really good at is talking to people and making my way around division, and I love it. And I hate being stuck behind a desk. Make Captain Smith put together the slides and hand them to Jonesy. And Jonesy just spends 8 hours a day and makes his way around. And even the division commander's like, hey, I notice.
And that's what I need. I mean, again, maybe it's already happening, but like, I'm excited to go around. I'm excited to meet all the division staff, and I'm honestly fired up about that. But I need the person that like can do that all the time, and who can just like, just kind of follow. I hope that exists, and maybe, I mean, there's an HSC commander, there's an HSC first sergeant. I'm hoping they're doing that already. But
yeah, well. Back to the first thing you got to know is exactly what you want and who you are. And like, if what you want, just using this as an example, if what you want and believe that you need the most is somebody that's constantly making their way around the division and sensing and has a pulse of everything that's happening in the division, nobody will be able to do that better than you. So, because no one's going to come up to you and say, hey, why aren't you at your desk checking emails? And why aren't you back in your cubicle? Like, you're a battalion commander. You can go anywhere you want. You're the division HHBN. You can go to any brigade that you want. And no one's going to be like, what the fuck is Tallant doing down here? And so you could spend the first month. Nobody in the battalion's going to be like, hey, sir, where have you been all day? It's not going to happen. Even the sergeant major's not going to say that. They're going to say things like, he's never around. It's awesome. We get to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
But there's a certain, you're going to come back and don't come back at 1600 on a Tuesday when you said no one goes home until we get the awards all signed. And then you come back on Tuesday at 1630 and they have a stack of AAMs for you to sign. And you're like, okay, from now on, be back at 1500 signing AAMs because it takes an hour to sign 200 AAMs, something like that. You will develop those kind of systems, but you've got to be from the beginning the person that you're hoping to find. So if you're trying to find a captain or a master sergeant, that's going to be the person, the Jonesy, that knows, hey, Jones, come here. What is happening in 1st Brigade? One of those people is the chaplain. Is you can always ask the chaplain what's going on and being like, hey, chaplain, what's the deal with the S6 section? And he's like, oh, sir, thank you for asking. So here's what's going on. You got a master sergeant and a captain that got an inappropriate relationship going on, and people are stuck in between the two of them. And they're like, I don't want to be on her side because then people are going to think that I'm showing favoritism. But I think what they're both doing is wrong. But he's such a good performer that nobody wants to go against Jonesy. And you're like, man, I want to see Captain so-and-so and Jonesy, the company commander, and this person in the company commander's office, and I'm going to go see them. Burp. Chaplain squared you away, and chaplain's like, all right, I'm off. I'm going to go check out 2 section. I'm going to go do PT with this one. So your chaplain can become your radar, your person. Because if sergeant major comes around, everybody gets spooked. And everybody's like, oh shit, what's sergeant major doing? And he's going to tell the commander. They don't think that when they think of the chaplain. So your chaplain is your secret, is a secret weapon for you. And you can have other secret weapons. But again, chaplain is only going to know what to do because you're going to demonstrate it. He's going to be like, oh, he's watching what you do. So like when I needed PT to be the most important thing, I demonstrated it. I was out there all the time. I was making my way around. Okay. Here's an email example. if you say, I don't want people to be leading from behind their computers through email. I want leaders to lead by example, and I want leaders to lead by being out at the inspections, doing the inspections, and this. If you say that, and then you go back to your office and send 3 emails, one to the staff, one to the commanders and first sergeants, and one to all your junior officers because you're going to do professional development. What you just did was you forced everybody to go back to their computer to read your emails. So you did the complete opposite. Don't send emails. Go to the inspection that's happening in the motor pool where you expect to see the captains and the sergeants and like doing the inspection. Ask them the question there. Hey, what's going on for the LPD on Thursday? Hey, bring that to the inspection because I'm going to be there. And they're like, sir, I'll send it to you in email. No. I didn't say send it to me in email. I don't want to go back to my office. Yeah. No, bring the documents too. Bring it in a hard copy, and I'll look at it when we're at the division rehearsal for this thing. Bring it there. Like, oh, okay. So now you're setting an example of you're always going to be at the most important events. You're going to be present. You're not going to be in your office doing busy work. The only thing I was in my office for was counseling, signing OERs and evals, responding to General Gerard or Colonel Mayo's emails. Those 2 specifically. Notice I didn't say anybody else. The brigade commander and the division commander. And you probably have division commander, chief of staff, brigade commanders. But what you're going to notice is that they're going to be fairly disciplined about who emails who, because they know that battalion commanders work for the division commander. So you're not going to get any emails from division staff. They're not allowed to, because if the division staff emails brigade commanders and battalion commanders, guess what the G3 and the chief of staff does? Smacks the shit out of them. You don't get to fucking send emails directly to battalion commanders. That's why we have a Frago. That's why we have tasking things. That's why we have a division DCGs. Those people task the brigades, And so you're leading by example on what you want to see. Be it. Because now if you find somebody, if you find that Jonesy, if you find that person that's going to be able to take over that responsibility for you, you knew what it took to do it, right? Because you saw how much time it takes. You saw how much effort it was. You saw what you were getting a good bang for your buck. You saw when you went down to the motor pool and there was no one there. You went down to the motor pool at the wrong time. You went down on Thursday. Well, sir, Thursday is the day we go to the range.
Yeah.
Why did you go to the motor pool on a Thursday? Motor pool Monday. Motor pool Monday, we do formation in the motor pool on Mondays. What time? 09:30. Now we like to get motor pool Monday started early because that way we can get everybody out on time. No, you're just trying to skip PT. We do PT till 8:30. We do personal hygiene until 9. At 9, you do your morning stand-ups, and at 9:30, we do formation.
That's awesome. No, that's really good. So talk about before you took command, what you expected. I know I like hey, you see everything, see everyone, see everything. How long before you took command? And obviously it depends on the outgoing. What did you ask for? What was offered to you? I'm just kind of curious if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember. I remember like it was yesterday. And I say that because when I was Battalion XO, my battalion commander had a document that he called the Command Group Efficacy. I'll send it to you so you know. And
yeah, please.
It described exactly what the battalion S3 does. It described what the XO does. It described what was expected from the battalion commander, the command sergeant major, and the ops sergeant major. Now, you're going to have to modify this to your organization, right? But the bottom line is it described exactly how you want to do training calendars. It exactly describes we're going to use the Microsoft Outlook calendar and that's what we're going to fight off. It described everything. That doesn't mean that's the way it's going to go, because when you show up there, but you've got to go in with this clear, exactly what it would be if you could have it any way you wanted. How would it be, Because sometimes when you get in there and you're like, hey, show me how we do the calendar, how we manage the calendar. And they go, well, sir, what we've been doing is we just take the division calendar and we print it, and then we write with a pen below it, like how we fit in, and we circle it. And you're like, how do we know where the commander is going to be? Where do you need to be? What events you need to be at? And then where do we put in our stuff, our training meeting like this? We don't do that. We just follow the division. We follow the division's calendar. So you go to all the division battle rhythm events, and you're like, okay, well, if it was my way, we would have our own Outlook calendar that had all of our internal stuff, and then we would synchronize it with, okay, so you define that through this document called the Command Group Efficacy. I learned that when I was a major. I took that document from Pat Wilkins, and I said, I'm going to do that. And then I modified it to a Cav Squadron because a Cav Squadron was slightly different. But I don't even know if I ever officially published it to the S3 and the XO until months in, because it took me a while to figure out. And I also didn't want to be the guy that came in and said, here's the 15 documents. This is exactly how I'm going to do it. I don't even care how you've been doing it before. No, that's not the kind of leader I am.
Yeah.
But I was clear what I wanted and what I thought I wanted. So now when you're just sitting there quietly watching, you're like, how do they synchronize their company training meetings with the battalions, with the divisions in preparation for the warfighter? You start with a long range training calendar, and then you got to get to then you got a monthly, then you got an idea of what we're doing today. Now I see why they're just like flying off this, like nobody knows what they're doing on a daily basis. They just know to come in tomorrow morning, and then everybody's like, here we go again. Division just fucking throwing stuff at us last minute. No, they didn't. You just didn't have it on the schedule weeks in advance. And you're going to see this, and it's going to be mind blowing because you just came from a 4-star headquarters. Even though you heard me a bunch of times say, I would have thought we knew what we were doing out in the future a little bit more than we do here. But we were reacting to like real world stuff. Like you ain't going to be. Like you're going to be like, it's going to be maddening that people don't know what they're doing next week. And you're like, what? We know when we're going, the 1st Brigade's going to JRTC. We know when the warfighter is. We know, like, why don't we have the next CPX 1 and 2? Well, we're waiting for somebody to tell us when to do it. No, we should put it on the calendar. Yeah. We should say, that's the rainy season. The rainy season is the worst. Like, why would we do CPX 2, which is when you put everybody in a tent with no heater? Why would you do that in January? Like, we have got to figure out a way to do it. Well, we're kind of sucking because, the division warfighter is in March, so then we have to do it in February. And we're like, okay, well, has anybody ever considered setting the tents up inside of a gym? Like, sir, that's fucking stupid. And you're like, is it stupid? Or what happened? Well, they're like, well, 3 years in a row, you're right. We were sitting out in the field. We had a blizzard. We had to cancel it because of, the floors got all wet, and then the power went down because it got waterlogged and like this. And all right, so maybe we could set it up in the gym. Let's try that next week, because we are practicing setting up tents, and we could practice setting them up in the gym and see what the ins and outs are. And you're like, hey, I got a better idea. There's this fucking place out at fucking Dillingham. Dillingham's got this big fucking hangar. It actually has dirt on the floor, so we can spike them into this is fucking great. Whoever came up with this idea is fucking gold. And they're like, okay.
This is awesome.
Yeah. You've got these ways that you saw things work in group. You got some things that you saw that worked the way we ran it in the CAG, the way you ran it with the CG, the way we ran it at SOCOM. You were the group 3, right?
Yeah, one of the group 3s. Yeah.
So just take those 5 things that I just said. Yeah. When you were a field grade, when you were a company commander, what were the best things about your company training meeting, the battalion's training meeting, the group's training meetings, and then combine those into a document and steal it. No one will know that it's the same one. Call it the command group efficacy, which is how this command group is going to work the best and how we're going to operate with the people. And then that's a starting point for you to kind of move forward with how you're going to how you see things running. And then you can say, maybe you do. I think in the first 2 weeks, I was like, hey, here's something I've been thinking about, but I want you to don't give me any responses because I want to see how things are going. And I want you to think. And they were like, sir, this is fucking gold. Why didn't you just tell us from the get-go to do it this way? Because of the way we were doing it, we didn't like it. And,
yeah, I mean, was there anything like for that, like things that people are like, hey, we know this isn't working? I mean, were they just like, hey, just tell us what you want, or were you just like, hey, I'm gonna see how it's going first? And
yeah, well, I said, essentially take the calendar and the battle rhythm and take every meeting and every place where the commanders and the first sergeants and the staff are supposed to be and are required to be at. Take it all off. And everything that goes on there, let's have a conversation about what it is. And what you'll note, and what I noticed was the things that they thought were dumb, they didn't even recommend putting it back on. And so the only things that got recommended to put back on were the most important things. They're like, okay, well, training meetings. When do we do is the most important meeting we did every week was the training meeting. If we do one meeting, it's the training meeting. When do we do it? Well, there's two schools of thought. You either do it on Monday or you do it on a Friday. You do it at the beginning of the week to set the stage for the week, or you execute the week and then you do a training meeting on Friday so that you come into the next week thing. Long story short, I've only seen it work on a Monday. I've never seen it work on a Friday. And you're always limping into Monday anyway. There's too many changes. And so I've always done it 10:30 on a Monday morning. You have time to come in, do PT, get your head out of your ass. And then everybody can come together on the first duty day of the week at 10:30. And we spend from 10:30 to 11:30 talking about what the rest of the week looks like, what the next 6 to 8 weeks looks like, what's the long range training calendar look like. And then I started sneaking in command and staff stuff at the back end of the training meeting because I was known as the commander that did one meeting a week. That's it. We did one training meeting on Monday, and that was it. Off we went. So then the rest of the week was training, and if the companies did one meeting, it was a training meeting. So they get to do theirs either at the end of the day on Monday, they could do it on Tuesday. Someone was like, sir, we like to go right back to the troop and do it in the afternoon on Monday. That way Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is all training. Friday is recovery, and then we start over again on Monday, blah, blah, blah. So there was all these other meetings. There was all these things that people were doing, and we're not sure why we were doing it in the first place. So as soon as they say, oh, well, we got to have a staff sync because there's got to be a point where the staff all comes together without the commanders, and they figure out resources and this and who runs the staff sync. The XO does. And you're like, okay, XO, when are you going to do your staff sync? He's like, whenever you want me to, sir. No, you run it. You get to do it. It's your staff sync. And so then you get a battalion XO who had been a company commander before. And now he's like, I've got ideas. I've got ideas on how I want to run the staff sync. And so then you see, then the S3 wants to do his training synchronization meeting. So when they do it. And so you got to be very cognizant of the fact that other people need time to do things with people in order to make you happy for the one meeting that you do, which is the training meeting.
Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of my thought on.
So, because and again, I don't even want to. Battalions in SF groups are a bit different. They're a lot similar, but they're somewhat different. We did flip-flopping, basically training meetings, command and staff, training, command and staff, training, command and staff, week. Because again, it's different. Companies, I always did it as a company commander, a weekly training meeting, but companies kind of it's managed at the company level, whatever. I'm just curious, could you have gotten by on a bi-weekly cycle, or did you feel like it needed to be, you had to have a meeting every week probably. And would you, because it sounds like you kind of almost did that. You would do command and staff stuff that was maybe more urgent, do an abbreviated training meeting and then jam the command and staff on that. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. Really what I did was I did training meetings 4 times a month every week. I did no command and staff. And I said, we're not going to do a command and staff until I'm uncomfortable with where we're at. And if you guys can prove to me that we are going to get our evals done, we're going to get our stuff turned in,
Yeah.
I trust you guys to do this. I trust the S1. I trust the staff. And Sergeant Major supported me. It took about 6 months and someone was like, this is why we do command and staffs. Because and so I started doing it on the back end of a training meeting. I still did training meeting every Monday, but then I would do basically divide your command and staff in half. And so, or a quarter. And so like on the first week of the month, we might talk evals and awards. And then on the second week, training meeting would go for an hour. And then we would spend 30 minutes talking about, personnel, 30, 60, 90. What I also then started to develop was, hey, why are we waiting to the command and staff to tell the troops whose eval is due and whose award is due?
Right.
Like that, you need to create a system where every Tuesday that document goes to the troops. And so what you found, that's right. And so, but you almost had to like let them choke themselves, let them hang themselves, let them say, I trust you. Now I'm like, that's me. Not everybody did that. A lot of people didn't. Like somebody said to me, actually it was the DCG, and he's like, I heard, is it true you haven't done a command and staff in 6 months? And I go, yes, sir. And he goes, you're doing something right though, because all your flippals are being turned in on time and all your awards are pretty good. And so I can't tell you to start doing it, and he's like, I like your creativity, and I was like, rather than do a meeting, spend that time doing evals.
That resonates with me. However, I think that I'm stepping into a situation where like that may be the thing that they tell me to do, I'll probably do it anyway,
sure.
But,
well, the first thing you got to do is exactly what the CG tells you to do.
Yeah.
And then the DCGs tell you to do. Like that's make no mistake. Like if they say the most important thing going on here is people are leaving without awards and evals, and we've got 75 flippals in the division, and 60 of them come from the division HHBN. All right, sounds to me like that just became your training meeting, and now you do a command and staffs 4 times a month, and the training meeting is done, following the division. When the division lays out its calendar, then you got to go back to, and your 3 has a huddle with everybody that kind of says, okay, so if this is what the division's doing, how are we going to support it? That's your training meeting. Maybe you're the opposite. You're not worried about training. You're the opposite. And you're like, we're going to do command and staff every week. It's my most important meeting. And the most important thing in that meeting is flippals, because we've got 65 of them. And so not only are we doing a meeting every week, but 3 times a week, S4, you're going to bring me the flipple tracker so I can see the progress and be like, hey, it's now been 2 weeks in a row and the flipple tracker hasn't changed once, except for flipple number 005, who's being run by Lieutenant, who's the best lieutenant you got, and she's crushed it. And you're like, why are we making no progress? And you're like, well, we got 65 flippals. Only 4 of them have been assigned to flipple officers. And you're like, all right. Time out. We're going to have a flipple education system. Someone who's an expert on flippals, PBO, you're going to come down here and give us a class. We're going to start with my flipple tracker. And you're like, hey sir, we got to run. We've got that thing coming up for CPX2. No, we don't. I'm not worried about CPX2. We got to get flippals right first, because that's, and command and staff. And you just ask about it every day. So here's one. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Pay attention to what you pay attention to. Because if you say you're about the command and staff and you say it's about flippals and these things, but you spend 90% of your time doing something else, it's not your priority. You're asking questions about this. So you've got to be careful about not asking questions about everything. Otherwise you'll be known as the commander that worries about everything. You've got to be able to walk by, how they say things like, if you walk by something that's messed up, you just created a new standard. You better get comfortable with walking by things that are not done to standard and being comfortable with that. That is so counter to what people say. But if you walk by the CQ desk and you say, why do we have guys playing video games at the CQ desk? That just became the commander's priority. And other people are going to make it happen. They're going to say things, but they're going to say it's because of the commander. That's where you got to get creative and go find a sergeant first class or a first sergeant and be like, hey, first sergeant, is it okay for people to play video games at the CQ desk? And he's like, no. And you're like, oh, okay. He's like, sir, why do you ask that? And you're like, I don't know. No reason. I just came walking through the barracks. No reason. And he's like, sure. And I started walking through the barracks every single day. I walked in the morning. I walked through in the afternoon because I wanted to prove that it was important. The barracks, the life of my soldiers was important to me. And the way I proved it was by walking through, and people would see me, and I was loud when I would walk through there, and I would make a production of it, and I would kick a can every once in a while. I'd pick up a trash bag and pick up all the cans, and I'd come walking across the street. Sir, why you got a trash bag? Oh, it's just over at the barracks. They can put two and two together that I just picked up all this trash over at the barracks with the Sergeant Major. But we wouldn't scuff everybody up. We just lived it. And then people would be like, oh shit, Commander and Sergeant Major, they do it all the fucking time. I just saw them cleaning out the Sergeant Major and the commander were over there cleaning out the lint traps. And, there was a bunch of laundry in the laundry room, and they're like, and sometimes you look over and you go, I was wondering how long it was going to take for me and Sergeant Major to be walking through the barracks and the laundry room before people caught on, And then sometimes it doesn't catch on. They're like, I don't have to worry about it because commander's taking care of it. Yeah, probably somebody you want to get rid of, but you can't get rid of everybody.
Yeah, no, it's good. Talk about the cycle, like the life cycle of command, like the 8 months.
Yeah, I got this document, and I got this idea from, again, Pat Wilkins, who was like a savant when it came to organizational leadership and how to get stuff done inside of an organization, right? He was a savant, and he had this whiteboard, and on the whiteboard, it was broken down into quadrants, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'll send you a copy of this document as well. But in the top corner, you had the things, the values, the virtues, the things that you are known for, right? Mm-hmm. This is what you believe, right? And this is all done in pencil because I changed it all the time. And then the second block was things you're going to do inside your command in the first 2 weeks. Like, this is what has to happen in the first 2 weeks. And this is a lot of input from people, ideas. This block right here is the first month, first 30 days in command. And then over here, you've got the first 90 days. Okay. So you said things I value, first week, first 2 weeks, first month, first 90 days. And you're like, okay, there's those things. It doesn't fit. It's not quite important enough to need to be done in the first 2 weeks. But in the first 90 days, I need to have counseled everybody. In the first 2 weeks, I need to counsel the S3, the XO, the others. So, like, what are those things, and where do they fall into these buckets? They don't duplicate. Okay, so this is your first 90 days. Down in here, you have the first year. Mm-hmm. So this box is everything that needs to happen in the first year of command. And I changed that from the first year to the first 8 months. So it didn't happen in the first 90 days, but it needs to happen in the first 8 months of command. And why did I change it from a year to 8 months? Because I think command is broken down into 3 8-month periods instead of 2 12-month periods. And I say, why is that? Because the 8-month mark is where people start to leave your organization and people start to come. So 1/3 of your battalion is going to be different at the 8-month mark. You're going to get new lieutenants, new captains, new sergeants. They're going to start PCSing. And by the 8-month mark, 1/3 of your unit is different. So what does that tell you now? 1/3, 33% of your people don't know what you did in the first 2 weeks of your command. They didn't receive the newcomer brief. They didn't get the commander's brief in the town hall. They didn't get the walk around and see everyone and see everything. They didn't get what's important now. They didn't receive your documents, right? They didn't see you walk around and develop those documents. They didn't get the battle rhythm overhaul that you did. They just fell in on what they got, right? So what I recommend you do on the first day of month 9 is you go back to the first 2 weeks and you start over again. Time to do a town hall where I'm going to tell the whole battalion what I'm about, what I value, what matters to me, what things that I value. Here's my leader's philosophy. And now you've made a couple changes. You've made a couple modifications based on the command group efficacy. You're probably getting a new field grade at this time, so it's time to implement somebody new. You might get a new sergeant major. One of the two is probably changing at this point. Start over at the 9-month mark here, and then go into the first month again. Do it again. So what is the first month? LPD program, policy letters review, hail and farewells. Because I said in the first month, we got to do at least one hail and farewell. So, oh shit, it's time to do a hail and farewell. You've now been here for 9 months and you've only done 3 hail and farewells. How often did you say you were going to do a hail and farewell? Every 30 days, right? You said you were going to at least get everybody together in the saloon for the first 30 days. All right. Oh, shoot. So in the first 2 weeks, make a note, find a place to gather, a place where we can bring people together. So in the Rattlesnakes, what we did was we did this thing called on Fridays at 1600, we did what was called stable call. And we brought people to the saloon, which was a place inside the battalion headquarters that had a bar that was built into the corner of the wall. That was wood with like pallets. It was like a pallet bar, right? But it actually had a refrigerator and a kegerator in it. And it was a place where people could bring a 6-pack, bring a couple beers, bring a little bit of bourbon, and gather at 1600 on Fridays. Sometimes we started it at 1400. Sometimes on Thursday, if we had a 4-day weekend, people would be like, hey, sir, are we going to do stable call on Thursday instead of Friday? And I was like, yes, get the word out. And it would get out faster than any recall, green Corvette, you name it. It would go out through a text message. It would be like, hey, we're doing stable call today and we're going to start at 2. You're like, why are we going to?
Who would be at the stable call?
The short answer is anybody that wants to be there is welcome to be there. But you're going to have to start with your own presence. So if you're there, we'll keep running with this. It's Friday. It's 1600. If you're there at 1600, guess who else is there? The field grades and the sergeant majors, right? They're back running a meeting because you're in the stable going, hey, where's Captain so-and-so? Bring them down to the stable at 1600 because I just found out that Sergeant First Class Jonesy is PCSing on Monday. I've got his award. And we're gonna pin it on him. We're gonna do it at 1600 while we're at the stable. Mm-hmm. And it became like a backstop. Anybody can come to it, but you start to dictate. We're gonna bring the S1, bring his chain of command. We started having people show up with their spouses to the stable call because they knew so and so was gonna get their medallion, and it grew, bro. It just grew. But it has to start with a place where people can gather.
What was your, was there any pushback about having that, like an alcohol related, I think that sounds cool.
Zero.
But I'm just curious. Okay.
Zero. Now, part of that becomes we were so lucky to have Jamie Gerard and Billy Pouliot and Josh Rudd was the DCG. Mm-hmm. When you have that command group, you can do this kind of stuff. Right. But if you got somebody who's not comfortable with it, you're going to have to find another way.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm just saying, you got to find another way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you can do the same thing over seltzer waters, or whatever. And here's another thing. When people said, aren't you afraid that that there's alcohol there? Hey, we're not getting wasted. Mm-hmm. I'm going to demonstrate through my action that you can have a beer and a sip of bourbon and maybe a second beer, and then I'm going to walk home. Yeah. And I'm going to demonstrate the right way to do this. We're not going to burn it down. Right. And if we do start burning it down, guess who's 20 feet away? The staff duty. Mm-hmm. And the staff duty is going to come over there and say, hey, knock it off. You know what else didn't happen once in 2 years? Not once in 2 years did somebody steal something from the saloon. And there was beer and bourbon behind the bar. Not once. Now, it might have happened. I'm not totally ignorant to the fact that somebody might have went in there and had a sip of the good stuff, right? But there was bourbon behind the bar. There was a running tap behind the bar. But you know what? When we left it that way, we showed that we were trusting the staff duty to keep an eye on it.
Mm.
Hey, if somebody can walk in and just start boozing it up in the saloon, what is the staff duty doing?
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine how it just showed trust. It showed, it demonstrated, I trust you guys. I trust you guys to do the right thing. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't write a memo on it. I didn't do a memo that said, this is what good order and discipline inside the saloon looked like. I demonstrated it. Mm. And if I thought something was getting a little bit sketchy, I told somebody, hey, it's time for First Sergeant to go home. We all knew what that meant, you know? Hey, First Sergeant, don't start pre-gaming before you go over. And we had a First Sergeant get in trouble. We absolutely did. We had a gathering at Sergeant Major's house, and it was a great event. We had First Sergeants, commanders, we had beers. It was a phenomenal event. But one of the First Sergeants went to the barracks instead of going home. And he said he was going, which I believe him, he was going over there to do like a walkthrough and try to walk off some of the beer that he had before he went home. But instead of walking it off, he had another one. And then he had another one with the guys in the barracks. And next thing you know, a young 18-year-old female was walking through the cough area, or the area, and he started yelling at her, hey, where are you going? What are you doing? And she started running to her room, and he goes, why are you running? So he chased her to her room. And then when she got in there, she was scared, and she called, and he started pounding on the door, and she called so the next morning she calls the SARC, the sexual harassment, because she felt like she was being harassed. Yeah. Guess who the sexual assault harassment representative was? The first sergeant that was there. Mm-hmm. Oh, so when he shows up to do the report, she goes, that was the guy that was pounding on my door last night. It was amazing. It was unbelievable how we put two and two together like that. You know, he drank too much. But guess what? Nobody ever did. Not once. Not once did the leadership say, see, that's because you got that saloon, and because you got beer in the saloon, you established a culture where it was okay to drink. No, because nobody thought that was okay. And no one questioned me about that. But I think we were blessed with Jamie Gerard and Josh Rudd, and then we had Jeff Van Antwerp come in for General Rudd, and they trusted us implicitly. And so when I first took command, and General Gerard and Pouliot said, we want to come visit the headquarters. We want to make our way around. And I said, okay, sir, here's a pin. Have I'll pick you up at this spot and walk you through the squadron. He said, oh, it sounds good. And Sergeant Major had just made this beautiful sign. It was huge. It said Rattlesnake Saloon. It had our cab thing. We put it up at the entrance, which is like the side of the building. Right? It's even on Google. If you go to Google and you put saloon in on 25th Infantry Division, it will pop up and there are pictures on it. You know how Google does it. And it has ratings as if it's a real saloon.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It is so hilarious, right? But so I pick them up, and they get out of their car and they see this sign and they go, Rattlesnake Saloon, I like this. And we walked in the door, and I walked them right through the saloon. And Jamie Gerard goes, this is awesome. Every battalion should have something like this, is what he said, right? Because we used to have day rooms back in the day. And he goes, everybody. I told all the battalion commanders, I said, hey, General Gerard just walked through. He saw the saloon. He said every battalion should have one of these. And then it became a competition. Everybody started building them. The Gimlets built one with like the Sergeant Major from the Wolfhounds built one using monkey pod wood. It was thousands of dollars. Like, this thing was amazing. Amazing bars. And they became places for them to do their hail and farewells, places for them to do gatherings. And it spread like wildfire in the 25th Infantry Division that you could build something, a place inside your battalion for your folks to gather. And in some places it had better, it stuck, but other places it didn't, because their leaders just didn't want to do it, weren't comfortable with it. They didn't, and so then it didn't stick. It didn't work. but it worked with us because me and the
Yeah.
sergeant major and the like, we believed in a place to gather. Okay. Did you get the stand up? The stand up, all I did was I walked in, and this didn't come to me on the first day, but I've been doing it for a while, but I had to codify it. So I took the whiteboard and I just wrote up on there, 25 minutes every morning, 06. That's what time we start. We do 25 minutes because at the 25-minute mark, we're walking outside to go salute the flag at 6:30. So at 06, we start. We spend 5 minutes and we talk about the one thing. I gave everybody a copy. I didn't make them buy it. I gave all top 5 a copy of the one thing. We're going to talk about the one thing that you need to do today. The one thing that makes everything else you're going to do in your day and your life easier or unnecessary. But it became the one thing. And if we had 5 of us, each person got 1 minute, no more, to talk through their one thing. The second part was, what do we got going on today? So the S3 would take the calendar. We all had our calendars in front of us, and we kind of went through, all right, at 9 o'clock, we got this. At 10 o'clock, we got that. Sir, you got this at 1300 up at division. I got the staff sync at 1600. And then we got this hail and farewell tonight. Okay, done with today. So we spent 5 minutes going through today. We spent 5 minutes going through the rest of the week. Okay, what does the rest of the week look like? On Thursday, we've got this. Hey, on Friday, it's going to be a half day. So everybody's going to get off at noon. Do we want to do the stable call at noon, or do we want to do it on Thursday? Hey, let's make the stable call on Thursday. Got it. Thursday, 1600. Boom. This week. Then we spent 5 minutes. What big decisions do we got coming up? What's coming up in the future? Well, we got to decide when we're going to do CPX 1 and 2. Are we going to do it in the gym, or are we going to do it outside? Where are we going to set the tents up? Okay. So you're just talking about what those big decisions are. So now you know what information you need to go out and get throughout the week, throughout the next couple of weeks in order to lock that decision in. And then the last 5 minutes is get it off your chest. Whatever's bugging you, get it off your chest. And then if you say things like, all right, I got one. The freaking S6 is just killing me. It's like every day they've got another drama event, and it's just wearing me out. And then you get it off your chest, you share it with the other 5, and then they get off their chest. They might have the same get it off their chest. I got mine's this is just bugging me. And the more vulnerable you can be with your people, the more they'll open up to you. But now you know what's bothering people. And when you go out throughout your day, you can help them with it. You can help them figure it out. And then a lot of cases, sometimes we would say, all right, hey, let's take this out to PT. And we would leave, we'd walk out to go to PT, and we would go on our run, and we would talk about the get it off your chest. My get it off my chest is I got shit going on
real quick,
at home.
you said you did this every day or just Mondays?
Every day, every single day.
Did you think that was too much, enough? I mean, obviously it worked. I'm just, okay.
I don't know if I could do without it anymore. And the reason I say that is because in order for me to operate with the autonomy that I wanted to give for people in the top 5, I had to spend those 25 minutes, focused 25 minutes with them, so that I didn't have to worry. And they didn't have to worry for the rest of the day. I might not see them for the rest of the day, and I'm not worried about it.
Top 5.
I did a top 5. Me, the command sergeant major, the operations sergeant major, the S3, and the XO.
Okay,
that's it.
Okay,
if you go any bigger than that, it's going to take longer than 25 minutes, and it's going to become more like a meeting. And if you don't believe in it, they're not going to want to do it. They're not going to want to do it every day.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it right, you'll sense the amount of time that you personally need to do something like that. And I personally needed that every day. I just fell out of sync. If we skipped the morning, the 06 sync, and we said, hey, we're going to do a 9 o'clock work call. I'm going to go to the motor pool and I'm going to head off to the motor pool at 9. The XO's got to do the division, thing. The S3 is going to be doing his synchronization thing. Sergeant Major's got a doctor's appointment in this. I just felt out of sync. until like the whole day because I hadn't seen them. Unless we did like a really good wrap up like the day before and we were 100% sure we couldn't do this thing the next day. It just, so now it requires a 06 sync in the morning and then a sync before you go home because you know you're not going to do it in the morning. And I don't think it like created this like necessity to do it. But what it did was it created this, I wanted to do it. We wanted to do it. We wanted to be together because we saw if you took this 30 days and you said, tell me the best 5 days you've had in a 30-day period, all 5 of them started with the best 06 sync you've seen. And if you take your worst 5 days, I guarantee the worst 5 days in the month, they didn't include a stand-up. It's probably on a day you didn't.
Did you do a closeout of any type or?
Nope.
No. Okay. So the end of the day was the end of the day. That was your time to, okay.
Not only did I not do a closeout, but I didn't need people to come and tell me what time they were going to go home. Because when did they tell me what time they were going to go home?
In the morning. Yeah.
At the 06 sync. Hey, Nick, what's your one thing today? Hey, the one thing I do today is I've got to get home in time for the kids. They're going to receive awards at the school at 1500. And I was like, I don't want to see you back after 1500 either.
Yeah.
And then at 14:30, I was sure as shit I was texting you and going, hey, just want to make sure you're on your way home. You know? Because I knew as the commander that you as the S3 had to be at your kids' awards ceremony at 1500. So you better be leaving at 14:30 so you can go home and get in civvies and not be a deadbeat who shows up 5 minutes late in uniform to the kids' basketball game that started at 1800. You couldn't find a way you couldn't bring civvies and put them in your car and change. It takes 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't be a deadbeat. You know, don't be a deadbeat. Don't be a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
You know, take the time to change, show your kids that you planned, you know, to get to their things. And when you demonstrate that the family and the kids and I'm just harping on family and kids because we all have them, but it could be something else. You know, you could have somebody coming into town. You could have, hey, at 1600, you've got senior rater counseling with the CG up at the division. So at 1500, I want you to walk away, go find a quiet place, get your thoughts together, get your stuff together, not be scrambling up to the last minute, get up to division at about 30 minutes before, walk around and see some folks. And then you show up early and you're in the proper mindset for it. And when it's over, you're going home or you're going somewhere else or you're going back to a quiet office to, you know, like script your days out to perfection, the ideal day. Script it out.
I love that concept.
Your people will follow your example. And if you're a bag of mess, which I know you're not going to be, but the commanders that are a mess, that are scrambling from one thing to the next, that are always just a little less prepared, guess what their battalion is? A little less prepared. And their whole organization is a little less ready or is a little too intense because they're too intense.
Yeah.
They take on the form of you.
Yeah. Oh, this is good.
That's the stand-up.
That's good. Did you do this is my other question. Did you do a kind of initial town hall like, hey, this is who I am, or this is me?
Yes.
When did you do that, out of curiosity?
I did that as soon as possible. I didn't do it often enough. I would do it more often. I would do it twice as much as you think. Schedule it twice as much as you think you're going to do it, and you'll end up doing it as much as you want to do it.
Yeah. But I mean, right after you took command, did you do one right then?
Right after I took command, I met with the top 5. And then after I met with the top 5, I met with the troop commanders and first sergeants. Mm-hmm. And then I met with the leaders, platoon sergeants. And then I met with the whole organization in the gymnasium and spoke to everybody, and soldiers fell asleep because I said way too much and I talked too long. And I allowed it to get stacked on top of an awards. So we promoted some guys, we awarded some folks with PCS awards, and then we did the commander introduction speech, and I should not have allowed 3 things to get morphed together, because then there were soldiers sitting in the bleachers that were falling asleep. And instead of getting mad, don't get mad at them, get mad at yourself, because whatever you're saying was not that exciting at that point. But I even have like my little script of what I read or what I followed. I still have it in my notebook right here. That's what I used at the town hall. And the answer is yes. And I would start making notes, because you're good at this. Remember how you used to have on the floor, you'd have all your different
Yeah.
discussions, and you were like, they're all at different stages.
Yeah.
That's the way you need to be with these top 5 or 7 things, who I am. And what I used when I had this conversation was I used, this little script right here. And it's a form of the narrative map. Remember that Joe McCormick gave us? Well, I had been following him for years. And so I used his narrative map, where I kind of started, in this category, the snakes, who we are, what we believe. I went into our story, family, service, purpose. Then I morphed into leadership, character, competence. And a speechwriter like you will be, this will be so easy for you, but it'll be hard, because now, instead of talking about like the strategy for the Pacific special operations across the Pacific and the thing where you have somebody else's information to use, you're going to get to decide, what is it going to be about? It's about leadership. It's about character. It's about competence. That's what we're going to be known. How do we demonstrate leadership and character and competence? Through PT and attitude. And you give them a couple like boom things that they can remember, right? Execution. That's what this battalion's going to be known as. We are a team. We're ready. And if anything else, if there's one thing we get right, we'll be the ultimate team players. Let's go, rattlesnakes. And you're like, this guy's great, 5 minutes or less. And he spit out like all this greatness. And you're like, there's a method to that madness, that you did at that town hall, and you'll be phenomenal at that. And again, just to kind of rehash, I think it's, what are the key documents that you want to walk in 30 days out when you show up and you land and your family gets off the plane and you move to your house, whether it's on post or off post, right? Those documents need to be done. They have to be done. Like there's no more revising at the last minute, because it's going to consume you. You're going to have to take your household goods. You're going to have to move into the house. You're going to have to change a command. The last thing you need to be worried about was, I need to put the finishing touches on my change of command speech. That's so easy. You've already scripted, what you want to say, get it onto a piece of paper, and then do what the big CGs do, is they do a quick review right before they go in. They pick up a couple of notes. They put it on, they put their glasses on, so give your speech, get off, be brief, be brilliant, be gone, off you go. Right. But you got your documents are good. Get those documents done. Because if you get your information on paper, you'll be able to recite it. It's just going to be second nature now, right? Because it's always so hard to document those things. Brother, now you make me think like, this is like the equivalent of going into like the posture for the CG, right? There was so much prep that happened before the thing, but then once you head up to DC, like he's got his engagements, he's going to go meet people. You just got to hope it's all going to come out because he's done all this preparation. So these 7 documents or 8 or whatever you decide are your 5 documents, your little roadmap that you draw out, that makes an 8 pieces of paper. And you're so clear at what you need to get done while you're at these PCCs, that you're so confident to go into command. You're so confident to just sit back and listen to these general officers speak to you at PCC, because you're like, I've got a roadmap to where I'm trying to go. So as soon as we hang up, I'm going to email you. What email do you want me to send these to?
You can just do it to my SOCOM, and then I'll send it to my Army one too, or you can copy both my SOCOM and my Army.
Okay. So I'll send them to your email, and then I'll attach a couple pictures, because like some of these things, it's easier for me to just take a picture of it, and then I'll send it to you, and then take like the rest of the week or two, like while you're at PCC, and start your little book, like your Nick Tallant book for command, and just start writing on them, brother. I mean, I think that's the start. And then at the end of the day, you put pen to paper. You spend an hour. This is how my PCCs went. Is I would at the end of the day, me and Rick Turner would go and work out to the gym, and then after the gym, we would go out to dinner, and after we would eat, I would put pen to paper on all the notes that everything I had, right? And then the next morning, I would get up and I would read something. I would make some notes on those papers that I did, and then every couple of days, I would print out fresh copies when we got back over to the little seminar, and then I would go home and rinse and repeat. And I was doing that every day. I would read something in the morning. I would get sparked throughout the day. I would write all over my papers. I would update the papers when I got home, and I would start over in the morning. And after 14 days of doing this, I had 7 or 8 documents, my key documents. I'd add one, I'd get rid of another, I'd morph 2 together. And I was pretty confident of what I wanted to do. And then someone would say something, and they would say something like, policy letters. And you'd be like, oh shit, I didn't address policy letters at all. How am I going to handle policy letters? Am I going to be the kind of commander that has 17 policy letters? Am I only going to do the 7 required ones? What am I going to do? So then I got to reach out, I got to reach out to the battalion. What are they using for policy letters? Do I want to do that before command? Do I want to do that after command? Yeah. I'd recommend doing it after. What are the things that you need to know? Because some people would say is you need to know what your policy letter is on, because as soon as on your first day of command, someone's going to do something and you're going to have to handle your policy on sexual assault. What I would say, brother, is that if you write something in your policy letter before you take command, and then you try to publish it on day 1, and someone does something, you're required to do what the policy letter says. So if you said anybody that tests hot on marijuana is going to receive an Article 15 and going to be separated from the Army, and then 2 weeks in you have somebody do it and you go, that was an accident and I don't want to kick this kid out. Well, your policy letter says you will. So don't do something that's going to restrict yourself. It's okay to say, I don't have a policy letter yet. I'm still reviewing my policy letters till later. And then you can take 5 policy letters that had to do with things, and I morphed them all into one policy letter that I called good order and discipline. How am I gonna achieve good order and discipline? And I lumped like 5 or 7 things into that one policy letter. And then I ended up having like 7. It was like open door policy, equal opportunity, sexual harassment, and then good order and discipline. And I lumped everything inside of that. I didn't do policy letters on how we're going to do schools. I didn't do policy letters on this, because the only person that's restricting is you, because now you have to do what those things say. I'm not a policy letter guy. I came from a commander. I had a commander that had policy letter 1 policy letter, and it said, in all cases, use your best judgment. Signed, Mike Foster. He was a Ranger Battalion commander. That was it. He had 1 policy letter. And then he did the same thing as the brigade commander of the 173rd. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I loved it. He was also the commander that wouldn't do command and staffs. Yeah. So, and then take those things and then work on them, and then when you're ready, like, let's do this again, because this is how I love spending my time doing this stuff.
That's awesome.
Preparation 101, how to get started pre PCC.
I love it. No, this is awesome, man. Thanks for taking the time. As I was going through and kind of getting ready, I'm like, should have had more conversations before you left. So I was like, things get crazy. So
anyway. I was the same way. I was the same way, brother. I really was. And that's why I'm doing this right now, because if you think like everything we're doing right now is I'm preparing for the 196th as well.
Right.
I was just reading this book last night. I've got to modify the things that I did as a battalion commander because they're not going to fit perfectly. You can't just copy and paste. But what I do know is that commander's philosophy is only going to change a little bit because I'm still the same. I'm still the person I was then. I know who I am. I know what I believe. I know what I'm going to bring to the team. I might be asked to do a little bit different things in here, but if I'm talking about my values of treating people with dignity and respect, those things are going to be the same.
Yeah.
And that's the core stuff. So cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Made my afternoon. Made my afternoon to talk
Thank
about
you
this.
so much. Really, really appreciate the time. And aloha. Enjoy it.
All right, brother.
Okay.
Later.
See you.
Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope we sparked some thoughts about the people that have inspired you to be who you are today. I hope you share some of your thoughts and better yet, demonstrate them for the people in your life. Our pursuit is to get a little bit better every day. Progress equals small victories stacked on top of each other, building like compound interest. Keep stacking these positive habits. Habits like getting up early, working your butt off, learning something new, being positive, and surrounding yourself with phenomenal people. Please share your comments at the links in the show notes and DM us at Teach Me to Fish podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world, but keep the sky on your mind.